But this one gentleman said, maybe as a society, we're crazy. Because what kind of people let people beg with children and do drugs and are just so left behind? Are we crazy? We have to ask ourselves that question. You can't have this bourgeois society buying things from Barney's in New York and pretending like somebody's not dying in the street. Gentrification, like I said, isn't all bad, but you can't leave people behind in their own filth, in their own agony.
Right. And you see these like high rises, and it just makes me wonder, like, who's living in them? Are there people in there? I guess it's just the rich, but at the same time, like, why would they even want to live amongst, what's deteriorating, what's left of Seattle?
It's almost as if they don't want to see it.
So they
They're
live in
like,
denial.
right, it's a denial.
So it sounds like the upper class and the poor are both insane.
No, I think that it's not that they're insane, they're just invisible. Last November of 2018, I had the opportunity to attend a forum at the Bill Gates Foundation on gentrification and homelessness. And there was a panel, and they discussed some of the ins and outs, some of the good and bad, but what could we do about homelessness? And unfortunately, they didn't really have a lot of suggestions. They suggested stuff like getting tiny houses, which they already do in the Seattle area, which are miniature houses that look like sheds. And they just suggested that they have backyard homes. And that's okay, but not a lot of people are going to let you build a house in their backyard. And then they went into this, maybe we should give people that are aimlessly walking up and down the street arts and crafts. Arts and crafts. And you have this society that's sitting around that's not even trying. I mean, you can't give people arts and crafts and they have nowhere to go and think that that's going to be okay while you sit back and drink your coffee and enjoy, your day and have fun. And they're struggling walking the streets. And you're talking about arts and crafts and sitting up at Starbucks. That's just blindly being in denial. Now, some of the suggestions that I have since I've worked in the industry, and I did a forum at Stanford on poverty, Stanford University, was that HUD and the federal government are going to have to get involved because they can regulate some of this stuff that's going on. You can't have gentrification and leave people blindly behind like that. You've got to come up with housing and resources for people. You just can't sit back and tell somebody you're going to do some arts and crafts while I go sit at Starbucks and drink my coffee. That's just silly. So I think the federal government, HUD, and some government regulations are going to have to get involved. because nothing gets done in America unless the government, I mean, we can cry about taxes and what have you, but nothing gets done in this country unless the government gets involved. So they're going to have to get involved. They're going to have to make sure that even though you want to have a certain kind of housing, that low income people and middle income people also have decent housing and access to food and access to medical and access to education. So the government's going to have to get involved. I mean, a lot of people are anti government, whether you're liberal or conservative, but they're going to have to get involved because this is just run amok. And we're not coming up with sound, solid foundations to build a better society.
And here we have is the finished product of gentrification. This was an area that was a part of Seattle, but now it's cut off.
Yeah, it's cut off because they wanted to make sure that it stayed at a certain level. As you can tell, most of the stores are high end, it has greenery, but there's no transportation for certain low income people or even some middle income people to even get to. It's very isolated. It's like they isolate themselves when they gentrify a lot of these areas and properties. It's not inclusive. So you have this whole section of town that has been cut off from the major parts of Seattle. It's been totally gentrified. About 5 or 6 years ago, it looked nothing like this. But they've added Microsoft and Apple has come in and some of your big corporates like Tesla.
What did it used to look like?
Well, basically, it was just a couple of little stores and maybe a major grocery store there, and maybe maybe a Bed Bath and Beyond, and there was nothing there. But now it has these high end renovations, those kind of stores, and most people can't even get to it. As a matter of fact, have also come in and added to the community. Whereas you go to downtown Seattle, they have not totally gentrified it yet, but this area is totally gentrified. And I mean, everybody's cut off.
Gentrification in the works, and corporations like Amazon have left people behind.
Yeah, they have nowhere to go. And this is the repercussions.